A dozen human colonies spread across the Perseus sector, each focused on agriculture, mining, or research, none militarized. For generations, they had lived in peace, confident that no species would ever risk attacking unarmed civilian settlements. They were wrong. Elias Corin wiped sweat from his brow as he inspected the swaying golden fields of Aegis Prime. As chief agronomist for the colony's eastern hemisphere, he supervised the production that fed millions across 3 star systems. Overhead, weather drones hummed softly, regulating rainfall patterns to maximize the harvest. Elias smiled. Another record year. The Colony Council would be pleased. "Soil samples show perfect nitrogen levels, sir," said his assistant, calibrating a handheld scanner. "This year's yield might exceed projections by 15%. Good. The frontier worlds need these shipments." Elias gazed toward the horizon, where massive grain silos gleamed in the morning sun. "There's nothing more important than feeding people, Thomas. Wars are fought over food more often than ideologies." "War? Out here?" Thomas laughed. "Earth hasn't seen real conflict in 80 years. The Defense Council keeps cutting military budgets every quarter." Elias nodded. "And why wouldn't they? Who would attack farms? 200,000 kilometers away." Captain Maris Lynn slouched in her command chair aboard the patrol frigate Aurora. The ship had seen better days. Patched hull plating, outdated sensor arrays, and weapon systems that hadn't been calibrated in years. Not that they needed much out here. Her primary duty consisted of routine sensor sweeps around colonial space and occasional asteroid deflection. "Captain, we're receiving the weekly status reports from the colonies," her communications officer reported. "All green across Perseus." Maris sighed, brushing back a strand of dark hair. "Anything more interesting than wheat growing well? Please send more fertilizer." Meridian Station reports they've discovered a new strain of bacteria that might revolutionize terraforming, and Series 4 has doubled copper production. "Thrilling," Maris muttered. She had once dreamed of commanding a real warship, not babysitting farmers and miners. But Earth's long peace had reduced the Navy to little more than a glorified Coast Guard. The Aurora wasn't even equipped with proper defensive capabilities anymore. Just 3 aging laser turrets meant for clearing space debris. "Horizon Station is requesting a flyby next week," the officer continued. "Something about calibrating their new long-range scanners." "Plot a course," Maris ordered. "At least Dr. Vale always offers decent coffee." At Outpost Horizon Station, Dr. Renata Vale stood before a wall of monitors displaying endless streams of data. The research hub orbited a gas giant at the sector's edge, studying alien ecosystems and stellar phenomena. As head engineer, Renata supervised the station's complex life support and research infrastructure. "The molecular stabilizers are showing anomalous readings in Laboratory 4, a technician reported. Renata frowned. "Again? Those new alien samples must be interacting with our containment fields. Adjust the quantum barriers and run a Level 3 diagnostic." The station hummed with activity. Scientists from a dozen worlds pursuing knowledge that would benefit all humanity. Renata took pride in maintaining the delicate balance between cutting-edge research and safety protocols. Her work here would help terraform worlds that future generations would call home. Little did any of them know that, light years away, Supreme Overseer Val Rex of the Karashim Collective was concluding an emergency session of the High Command. "The evidence is irrefutable," he declared, gesturing to star charts where human colonies glowed like unwelcome intrusions. "These primitives expand unchecked into sacred space. Their terraforming blasphemes against cosmic order. Their settlements encroach upon territories promised to us by the ancients." The chamber, carved from a hollowed asteroid, echoed with rumbling agreement from assembled commanders. Their exoskeletons clicked nervously against stone benches. "Diplomatic channels?" suggested First Strategist Moclaren, mandibles twitching. Vale Rex's crystalline eyes flashed dangerously. "Diplomacy? With vermin? No. We tried reasoning with the Centauri Accord 50 cycles ago. Look where tolerance led. Their colonies now ring our ancestral sanctuaries. He activated a holographic display, showing detailed scans of human settlements. Observe. No significant defenses, no warships. They've grown complacent in their isolation. Their central government has neglected military spending for decades. A preemptive cleansing, then. Moclaren's voice carried reluctant acceptance. Not cleansing. A message. Volrex's voice hardened. Strike 3 colonies simultaneously. Destroy their communications, their infrastructure, their hope. The survivors will flee back to their core worlds. Human expansion will cease for generations. Which targets? Vale Rex selected 3 points on the map. Aegis Prime, their food producer. Meridian Station, their communications hub. Ceres 4, their mineral supplier. Each undefended, each vital. None of the commanders raised objections. None considered that humanity, despite its peaceful appearance, might possess the capacity to respond with unprecedented fury. None imagined they were about to awaken the dragon. Dawn broke over Aegis Prime's eastern hemisphere, painting the grain fields in hues of gold and amber. Elias Corrin had risen early to oversee final preparations for the autumn harvest. Children laughed as they raced between towering silos, their parents already at work in the vast processing plants. The first indication of trouble came not as a warning, but as a sudden, inexplicable silence. Communication devices ceased functioning. Atmospheric drones plummeted from the sky. Power grids flickered and died. Elias looked up as darkness swept across the morning sky. Not clouds, but massive shapes blotting out the sun. Dreadnoughts. 7 of them, their hulls etched with alien symbols, moving into low orbit with terrible precision. "What the hell?" he began. The world turned white. From orbit, beams of concentrated energy lanced downward. Where they touched, farmland vaporized. Processing centers exploded. Residential zones erupted in firestorms that consumed everything in their path. The colony's minimal orbital defenses, designed to intercept meteors, not warships, crumbled in seconds. Aboard the Aurora, Captain Maris Lynn jolted awake as emergency alarms blared throughout the ship. The communications officer's face had gone pale. "Captain, we're receiving multiple distress calls. Aegis Prime, Meridian Station, Ceres Thar. They're under attack." "Attack? By whom?" Maris rushed to the command deck, still pulling on her uniform jacket. "Show me." The main view screen flickered to life, displaying fragmented transmissions. Scenes of devastation flashed across the screen. Orbital bombardment, fleeing civilians, collapsing structures. Through static-filled audio came screams, desperate pleas for help, and confusion. Unknown vessels, massive energy weapons. No warning. They just started firing. Thousands dead already. Please. Anyone. "Get me Earth Command," Maris ordered, ice forming in her stomach. "Communications relays are down. We can't reach beyond Perseus." "How far are we from the nearest colony?" 6 hours from Meridian at maximum thrust. Maris gripped the command console. "Prepare all weapon systems. Alert medical to prepare for casualties. We're heading to Meridian Station." "Captain," her first officer said quietly, "our weapons can't match those ships. We're a patrol vessel, not a warship." "I know," Maris replied grimly, "but we're all they have." At Outpost Horizon Station, chaos reigned. Dr. Renata Vale fought to maintain stability as the station's superstructure groaned under repeated energy impacts. Emergency lights bathed panicked faces in blood-red hues as scientists and staff rushed toward escape pods. "Seal off the compromised sections," Renata shouted over the blaring alarms. "Reroute power to life support and shields." A massive explosion rocked the station, throwing her against a bulkhead. Pain lanced through her shoulder, but she pushed herself upright. The main laboratory section had been breached. Precious, atmospheric gases vented into space, carrying equipment and Renata's heart sank. At least 3 researchers. Alien vessels are targeting our primary power core, reported her assistant, blood trickling from a gash on his forehead. Structural integrity at 37% and falling. Renata made a split-second decision. Initiate Emergency Protocol Omega. Download all research data to secure storage and prepare for station evacuation. But the research, years of work. Lives first, Renata cut him off. Get everyone to escape pods. I'll try to keep us stable long enough for launch. As her team rushed to comply, Renata accessed the station's main engineering controls. If she could reroute power from non-essential systems, they might maintain enough structural integrity for evacuation. Her fingers flew across the interface, bypassing safety protocols and channeling every available joule of energy to shields and life support. Through the observatory dome, she could see them, 3 massive vessels, their hulls biomechanical in appearance, methodically firing upon the station. No demands, no warnings, just destruction. On Aegis Prime, Elias Corrin led a desperate evacuation. The colony's underground storage facilities, massive chambers carved beneath the grain silos, had become impromptu shelters. Farm equipment smashed through burning buildings, clearing paths for fleeing families. Children wept in terror as the sky continued to rain fire. "This way!" Elias shouted, helping an elderly couple navigate through smoke-filled corridors. "The northern bunkers still have power and air filtration." The planet's atmosphere had become toxic, filled with particulates from burning crops and structures. Each breath scraped Elias's lungs like sandpaper. Around him, colonists pressed damp cloths to their faces, eyes watering from smoke and ash. "The perimeter fields are gone," reported a dust-covered agricultural supervisor. "Everything we planted, everything, it's just gone." Elias nodded grimly. "Focus on getting people to safety. We can rebuild fields. We can't replace lives." A thunderous explosion rocked the ground beneath them. One of the grain silos, a towering structure housing thousands of tons of processed cereals, had taken a direct hit. It collapsed in slow motion, a mountain of metal and composite materials crumbling into dust. The underground passage they occupied shuddered ominously. "Move! Everyone move now!" Elias urged the refugees forward as ceiling panels began to crack above them. "The whole sector is coming down!" They barely made it to the reinforced bunker section before the passage collapsed behind them. Elias did a quick head count. Nearly 300 colonists had made it to this shelter alone. How many others had found safety elsewhere? How many hadn't made it at all? A young girl tugged at his sleeve, her face streaked with soot and tears. "Mr. Corrin, why are they hurting us? We didn't do anything wrong." Elias knelt beside her, struggling to find words that wouldn't terrify her further. "I don't know, sweetheart, but we're safe down here, and help will come." He prayed he wasn't lying to her. Aboard the Aurora, Captain Maris Lynn watched in horror as they approached Meridian Station. The orbital platform, once home to 10,000 colonists and the sector's primary communications array, had been reduced to scattered debris. Bodies drifted amid the wreckage, frozen in the vacuum of space. "Any life signs?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "Scanning. Yes. Faint readings from within the central hub. The emergency shelters must have held." "What about the attacking vessels?" "2 signatures detected on the far side of the moon. They appear to be mining the debris." Maris's jaw tightened. "Salvaging their handiwork. Prepare boarding teams. We'll rescue as many survivors as possible. Then withdraw to a safe distance." "Captain," her tactical officer interrupted. "The alien ships have altered course. They're coming about, heading straight for us." Maris straightened in her command chair. "Battle stations, charge what weapons we have. Send an encrypted burst transmission to any Earth forces in range. Include all sensor data on the attackers." "And if no one receives it?" "Then at least we'll go down fighting." Maris activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands. This is the captain. We are about to engage hostile forces that have attacked our colonies without provocation. We are outgunned and outmatched. But we will not abandon our people. Stand to your posts. Aurora out. The first enemy shots lanced across space before she'd even finished speaking. The Aurora shuddered violently as energy beams sliced through its outdated shields, carving gouges in the hull plating. "Evasive maneuvers," Maris ordered. "Return fire with all functional weapons." The patrol ship lurched sideways, its engines straining beyond safe parameters. Its 3 laser turrets, designed for clearing space debris, not combat, fired pathetic volleys against the approaching behemoths. "Direct hit on our starboard engine," reported the engineering officer. "We're venting atmosphere on decks 3 through 5. Seal those sections. Reroute power to forward shields." Maris gripped her armrests as the ship pitched violently. "Target their weapon emplacements. Fire everything we've got." By some miracle, one of Aurora's desperate shots found a vulnerable spot on the nearest enemy vessel. A secondary explosion bloomed across its hull, momentarily disrupting its attack pattern. "Their forward shield generator is destabilizing," called the tactical officer. "It's our only chance." "All power to weapons," Maris ordered. "Continuous fire on that weak point." The Aurora's remaining lasers concentrated on the damaged section, pouring energy into the enemy's compromised defenses. For a moment, it seemed to work. The alien vessel's fire slackened as it attempted to compensate. Then, the second enemy ship entered firing range. "Brace for impact!" Maris barely had time to shout before energy beams sliced through the Aurora's hull. The bridge erupted in sparks and smoke as consoles overloaded. Emergency lighting flickered on as main power failed. "Hull breach on multiple decks," reported the damage control officer, coughing through the acrid smoke. "We're losing structural integrity." Maris made the hardest decision of her career. "Abandon ship. Get everyone to escape pods. Set the Aurora on collision course with the damaged enemy vessel." "Captain." "That's an order. I'll initiate the sequence and we'll get everyone out." As her crew rushed to evacuate, Maris programmed the final command sequence. The Aurora's engines would overload just as it reached the enemy ship, turning the patrol vessel into a makeshift bomb. It wouldn't destroy the alien dreadnought, but it might disable it long enough for the escape pods to reach Meridian's surviving shelters. The ship groaned around her as systems failed cascadingly. Maris sent one final transmission: the enemy ship's specifications, weaknesses, tactical patterns, everything Earth's forces would need. Then, she made her way to the last remaining escape pod. Behind her, the Aurora accelerated toward its target, a wounded animal making one final, defiant charge. On Earth, the Central Government Council convened an emergency session. President Amara Jovan stood grim-faced before assembled representatives as reports and visuals from Perseus sector filled massive display screens. 3 hours ago, unknown alien vessels launched coordinated attacks against our outer colonies, she announced, her voice steady despite the horror unfolding on the screens. Aegis Prime, Meridian Station, and Series 4 have sustained catastrophic damage. Casualty estimates currently exceed 30,000 civilians. Murmurs of shock rippled through the chamber. For decades, Earth had known only peace. The concept of an unprovoked attack against civilian targets seemed incomprehensible. "What defenses did these colonies have?" demanded a representative from the African Union. "Minimal," replied Admiral Levancho, stepping forward. His weathered face reflected decades of service in a navy that had been systematically downsized and repurposed. Meteor defense systems, basic patrol ships, nothing designed to repel military assault. "And our response capability?" President Jovan asked. Admiral Cho exchanged glances with General Maraved, commander of Earth's ground forces. Their expressions said everything. "Madam President," Admiral Cho began carefully, "our combat-ready fleet consists of 17 vessels. Only 3 are equipped with heavy weapon systems. Reactivating mothballed ships would take weeks, possibly months." General Ved added, Our ground forces are trained primarily for disaster relief and peacekeeping. We haven't manufactured offensive weapons in significant numbers for nearly a generation." Silence fell over the chamber as the implications sank in. Humanity's long peace had left them vulnerable precisely when strength was most needed. "Do we know who attacked us?" asked the European representative. "Have they made demands?" "No communications have been received," President Jovan replied. "However, we've identified the aggressors as the Karashim Collective, based on ship configurations and energy signatures." Images appeared on the main screen. Biomechanical vessels with distinctive design elements. Intelligence reports scrolled alongside them, detailing what little Earth knew about this reclusive species. "They've avoided contact with human colonies for decades," explained the intelligence director. "Their territory borders the Perseus sector, but previous scans indicated they were confined to a single star system." "Evidently not," muttered Admiral Cho. "What are our options?" President Jovan addressed the military leadership directly. Admiral Cho stepped forward. "Madam President, I propose reactivating Project Dragon's Roar." Gasps and objections immediately erupted. The project had been mothballed 20 years earlier, deemed too aggressive, too militaristic for humanity's peaceful expansion. "That program was shut down by unanimous vote," objected the Oceanian representative. "It contradicts everything our society stands for." "So does the slaughter of innocent colonists," General Ved countered, her voice cutting through the chamber. The Karashim didn't seek diplomatic solutions. They didn't issue warnings. They specifically targeted undefended civilian populations. President Jovan raised her hand for silence. "Explain Dragon's Roar, Admiral." "A comprehensive military readiness initiative," Cho replied. "It includes rapid conversion of civilian shipyards to produce combat vessels, adaptation of mining equipment into weapons platforms, and accelerated training programs for volunteer forces." "The timeline?" 6 weeks to field the first response fleet, 3 months to full operational capacity. President Jovan nodded slowly. "And in the meantime, we evacuate surviving colonists, establish defensive perimeters around remaining settlements, and gather intelligence on Karashim capabilities." The chamber erupted in debate. Some representatives demanded immediate diplomatic overtures. Others called for full mobilization. Still others suggested abandoning the outer colonies entirely, withdrawing to more defensible positions. President Jovan listened to all arguments before speaking again. "We face an enemy who attacked without warning or provocation, who specifically targeted civilian infrastructure, who, even now, continues to bombard settlements that pose no conceivable threat." She activated a holographic display showing real-time footage from Aegis Prime, burning fields, collapsed habitats, desperate evacuation efforts. "This is not a matter for debate. As of this moment, I am invoking Emergency Protocol Alpha. Admiral Cho, you will implement Project Dragon's Roar effective immediately. General Ved, begin coordinating with colonial militia and prepare defense forces. All industrial capacity is hereby redirected to war production." She surveyed the stunned faces before her. "Make no mistake, we did not choose this conflict, but we will damn well finish it." As the council session adjourned, Admiral Cho approached President Jovan privately. "There's one more aspect of Dragon's Roar you should know about, Madam President. Something not in the official documentation." Her eyes narrowed. "Go on." "Project Stellar Hammer, a theoretical weapon system designed to temporarily destabilize stars, disrupting enemy fleet movements through affected regions." "You're talking about weaponizing a star?" "As a last resort only. The technology was never fully developed, but the theoretical framework exists." President Jovan considered this silently. "How quickly could it be operational?" "With unlimited resources, 3 months, possibly less. Proceed with development, but with absolute secrecy. Authorization Jovan Alpha 7. As Admiral Cho departed, President Jovan turned to the windows overlooking Earth's gleaming capital. For generations, Humanity had explored the stars with open hands, not clenched fists. That era had ended today. Across human space, the response to the attacks unfolded with unexpected speed and determination. Civilian shipyards from Mars to Europa began converting production lines to military specifications. Mining operations redirected excavation equipment to forge armor plating and weapon components. Research stations repurposed terraforming technology to develop defensive systems. At a hastily established command center in Geneva, Admiral Cho coordinated the nascent war effort. Holographic displays showed the status of vessel conversions, personnel training, and defensive preparations across human space. The Galileo shipyards report conversion to military production is 70% complete, reported his aide. First combat-ready vessels expected within 14 days. Cho nodded grimly. And the volunteers? Overwhelming response. Sir, training facilities across Earth and Mars are operating at triple capacity. Colonial refugees are particularly eager to enlist. Understandable, Cho murmured. Route the colonists with technical expertise to Dr. Vale's team. The rest can join General Ved's rapid response forces. In a converted research facility beneath the lunar surface, Dr. Renata Vale, her arm still in a sling from injuries sustained during Horizon Station's evacuation, supervised a team of scientists examining salvaged Caricium technology. Their shield harmonics operate on principles we hadn't considered, she explained to visiting military officials. Conventional energy weapons disperse ineffectively against their crystalline matrices. However, she activated a demonstration chamber where a piece of recovered alien hull material floated in suspension. We've discovered that electromagnetic pulse weapons, properly calibrated, can disrupt their shield generators temporarily. How temporarily? Asked a general. 15 seconds, perhaps 20. Long enough to deliver a conventional strike to vulnerable areas. Can we replicate this technology? Renata smiled grimly. We already have. The first EMP warheads are being installed on converted mining vessels as we speak. But that's not all. She led them to another chamber where technicians worked on what appeared to be modified railgun systems. We're calling this Dragonfire, hyper-accelerated tungsten carbide projectiles designed to penetrate Caricium hull materials during shield disruption. Initial tests show 97% penetration at 1/8 light speed. On Mars, General Ved supervised the training of volunteer forces. Former miners, engineers, and colonists drilled alongside professional soldiers, learning to operate hastily manufactured combat equipment. Keep your formation tight, Ved shouted, as a squadron of converted atmospheric skimmers practiced evasive maneuvers. Remember, their targeting systems lock onto thermal signatures. Dispersed heat means dispersed fire. Among the trainees was Elias Corin. After leading survivors from Aegis Prime to safety, he had immediately volunteered for the counteroffensive. His agricultural expertise had initially led commanders to assign him to logistics. But Elias had insisted on combat training. You know farming equipment, Ved had argued during his evaluation. Not weapons. With respect, General, Elias replied. I watched my world burn. I helped bury children. I know exactly what I need to know. Ved had recognized the look in his eyes, the same cold determination she saw in all the colonial volunteers. She assigned him to a special operations unit tasked with boarding disabled enemy vessels. 6 weeks after the initial attacks, humanity launched its first coordinated counteroffensive. The hastily assembled Terran task force, 37 converted civilian ships equipped with retrofitted weapon systems, departed from Mars orbit. Their destination, Perseus Junction, where intelligence indicated Caricium forces were gathering for a second wave of attacks. Admiral Cho addressed the fleet from his flagship, the Defiant, once a luxury passenger liner, now bristling with weapon emplacements. You carry with you the hopes of every human being across the stars, he told them. Many of you lost homes, loved ones, and livelihoods to these aggressors. Channel that pain into purpose. Remember what we fight for. Not just vengeance, but the right of humanity to exist without fear. As the fleet departed, President Jovan received a secure communication from the Stellar Hammer development team. The prototype was nearing completion, a device capable of inducing targeted solar flares in specific types of stars, particularly the neutron stars that anchored many hyperlane junctions. The weapon requires precise positioning, the lead scientist explained. A delivery vessel would need to approach within 100,000 kilometers of the target star, well within lethal radiation range. A suicide mission, Jovan observed quietly. Yes, Madam President. We've designed an automated delivery system, but the targeting parameters would require manual calibration during final approach. Jovan closed the connection, the weight of potential decisions pressing upon her. She had authorized the weapon's development as a deterrent, a last resort. But if the Karashim launched their second wave before human forces were fully prepared, in the Karashim Collective's Central Command asteroid, Supreme Overseer Val Rex reviewed reports of human countermeasures with growing irritation. They resist, he demanded, mandibles clicking in agitation. After witnessing our power, First Strategist McLaren displayed tactical projections showing human fleet movements. The vermin show unexpected adaptation. They've modified civilian vessels for combat purposes, primitive but numerous. Numbers mean nothing against our technological superiority. Val Rex dismissed. Proceed with a second cleansing wave. Target their staging points. Leave nothing. Supreme Overseer, McLaren ventured cautiously. Our advanced scouts report unusual activity near Perseus Junction. The humans appear to be testing new weapon systems, one specifically calibrated against our shield technologies. Val Rex's crystalline eyes narrowed. Impossible. Their development cycle is too slow for such rapid adaptation. Nevertheless, the evidence suggests... Enough! Val Rex slammed a clawed appendage against the command console. I will not delay our sacred mission because of primitive tinkering. Launch the fleet immediately. Show these humans the consequence of defiance. As the Karashim Armada prepared for departure, McLaren quietly ordered additional shield generators installed on key vessels. The humans' resilience troubled him more than he dared express to his increasingly unstable leader. Near Perseus Junction, the Terran task force positioned itself for the coming confrontation. Sensor buoys deployed throughout the region tracked Karashim fleet movements, providing real-time intelligence to Admiral Cho's command staff. They're mobilizing, reported the tactical officer. 83 vessels, including 7 Dreadnought-class ships. Cho studied the holographic display. Nearly 3-to-1 odds. Not in our favor. Sir, the Revenant has completed its mission. Captain Lin reports all EMP mines are in position throughout the asteroid field. The Admiral nodded. The Revenant, a fast attack frigate commanded by Maris Lin, who had survived Aurora's destruction, had spent the past week seeding the junction's asteroid belt with electromagnetic pulse devices disguised as mining equipment. Tell Captain Lin to take position behind the fourth moon. Her ship will lead the flanking maneuver once the enemy is committed. As preparations continued, Elias Corin and his boarding team reviewed final mission parameters aboard their assault shuttle. Each wore experimental combat armor, salvaged and repurposed from mining exoskeletons. Their weapons, a combination of repurposed industrial tools and hastily manufactured firearms, looked primitive, but had been specifically designed to penetrate Karashim biology. Remember, their commander emphasized, your primary objective is to secure the enemy command center and download their navigational database. Secondary objective, disable their propulsion systems. If either objective becomes impossible, plant the fusion charges and withdraw immediately. Elias checked his equipment one final time. The weight of the rifle felt strange in hands, accustomed to agricultural tools. 6 weeks ago, he had been measuring crop yields. Now he prepared to board an alien warship. For Aegis Prime, he murmured to himself. Around him, other colonial volunteers whispered similar mantras, the names of destroyed homes, lost family members, obliterated futures. Aboard the Revenant, Captain Maris Lynn addressed her crew. The ship, hastily commissioned and built around salvaged components from 3 different vessels, represented humanity's new approach to warfare: adaptable, resourceful, and utterly determined. "You've all seen what these creatures did to our colonies," she told them. "Today, we show them the cost of that mistake. Our role is critical. Once the main fleet engages, we'll trigger the EMP network, then strike from their vulnerable flank." She activated a tactical display showing the complex maneuver they would attempt. "This won't be easy. Many of us won't return, but every second we keep their attention is another second for our boarding teams to complete their missions." Her communications officer interrupted. "Captain, priority message from Admiral Cho." Maris reviewed the encrypted transmission, her expression hardening. "Change of plans. We've received authorization to deploy the package." Her executive officer paled slightly. "The Stellar Hammer? It's operational?" "Partially. Enough for our purposes." She turned to her navigation officer. "Plot a course to these coordinates. Maximum stealth approach." The officer examined the destination and swallowed hard. "Captain, that's practically inside the junction star's corona." "I'm aware." Maris's voice remained steady. "The device must be positioned precisely to affect hyperlane stability. Our ship is the only one with the necessary maneuverability and stealth capabilities." No one spoke the obvious truth. Such proximity to a neutron star meant lethal radiation exposure. The Revenant would not be returning from this mission. "Set Condition 1 throughout the ship," Maris ordered, "and send a final message to Admiral Cho. Revenant accepts the mission. Dragon's fire awakens." Hours later, the Karashim fleet emerged from hyperspace near Perseus Junction. Their formation, a perfect crescent of warships with dreadnoughts positioned at key tactical points, reflected thousands of years of combat evolution. Supreme Overseer Vale Rex observed the human defenders from his command vessel's overview chamber. The pitiful collection of converted ships amused him. "They send cargo haulers and mining vessels against us?" he laughed, mandibles clicking in derision. "Such desperation only confirms their weakness." First strategist McLaren was less dismissive. "They've formed a surprisingly effective defensive perimeter. Note how their smaller vessels shield the weapon platforms. And these sensor readings suggest significant modifications to their shield generators." "Irrelevant." Val Rex activated the fleet-wide communication system. "All vessels, commence attack pattern dominance. Target their command ships first, then methodically eliminate all resistance. Let none escape to spread tales of defiance." The massive Karashim armada surged forward, energy weapons charging as they closed distance with the human fleet. Behind them, the Junction's neutron star pulsed with regular precision, its radiation carefully contained by the celestial engineering that had created the stable hyperlane centuries ago. None of the Karashim noticed the small frigate approaching the star from the opposite direction, its hull already beginning to blister from the intense radiation. Admiral Cho watched the enemy advance on his command display. "All ships, maintain formation. Remember your training. Remember why we fight." The human fleet held position, seemingly paralyzed before the overwhelming force bearing down upon them. Karashim gunners targeted the largest converted vessels, confident in their superior range and firepower. The trap was sprung. "Now," ordered Admiral Cho. Throughout the asteroid field, hundreds of EMP mines simultaneously activated. A wave of electromagnetic energy washed across the battlefield, temporarily disrupting Karashim shield generators and weapon systems. In that moment of vulnerability, the human fleet launched a coordinated attack. Converted mining ships fired Dragonfire railguns, their hyper-accelerated projectiles punching through temporarily unshielded hull sections. Retrofitted passenger liners launched swarms of autonomous drones that targeted engine exhausts and sensor arrays. Cargo haulers revealed hidden missile bays, unleashing warheads specifically designed to exploit Karashim biological vulnerabilities. The Karashim fleet reeled from the unexpected assault. Several smaller vessels, their shields completely disabled, broke apart under concentrated fire. Others scrambled to restore defensive systems, their formations disintegrating into chaos. "Continue advance!" Vol Rex screamed, as his flagship shuddered under impact. "They are merely delaying the inevitable." The initial human advantage began to fade as Karashim systems came back online. Their superior technology reasserted itself, energy weapons slicing through retrofitted human shields with increasing effectiveness. "We've lost the Venture and Horizon Seeker," reported Admiral Cho's tactical officer. "Dreadnoughts are regrouping for concentrated fire." Cho nodded grimly. "Signal the boarding teams. Execute Phase 2. Across the battlefield, assault shuttles detached from larger vessels and accelerated toward designated Karashim targets. Among them was Elias Korn's team, approaching a mid-sized cruiser whose defensive systems had been partially disabled. 30 seconds to contact," announced their pilot. "Brace for impact." The shuttle crashed through weakened shields and slammed into the alien vessel's hull. Magnetic clamps engaged, securing their position as cutting tools began carving through the biomechanical exterior. "Atmosphere present but toxic," reported the team's sensor specialist. "Helmet sealed." The hull breach created a momentary explosive decompression that sucked debris, and 2 unfortunate Karashim crew members, into space. Elias and his team pushed through the opening, securing their entry point with automated sentry guns. "Central Command should be 3 levels up," the team leader announced. "Move fast, stay tight." They encountered sporadic resistance, Karashim warriors wielding energy weapons that could slice through standard armor. 2 human soldiers fell within the first minutes, their retrofitted mining suits providing inadequate protection against direct hits. Elias advanced methodically, his agricultural precision now applied to combat. Each shot from his rifle targeted joint points in Karashim exoskeletons, where their natural armor was thinnest. The creatures' chitinous bodies shattered under impact, spraying iridescent fluid across corridor walls. Elsewhere in the battle, Captain Maris Lin guided the Revenant toward its final destination. The frigate's hull temperature had reached critical levels as they approached the neutron star's outer boundary. Warning systems screamed throughout the ship, reporting radiation leaks and structural failures. "Hull integrity at 28%, reported her engineer. Voice steady, despite knowing they were flying to certain death. "Stellar Hammer deployment system still operational." Maris nodded, her face illuminated by the star's unearthly glow. "Begin final approach sequence. Activate targeting parameters." The Revenant's engines strained against the star's gravitational pull as they maneuvered into precise position. Through viewports, crew members could see their own shadows burned permanently into bulkheads by the intense radiation. "Package ready for deployment," announced the weapons officer. "Awaiting final authorization." Maris entered her command codes. "Stellar Hammer activated. Set countdown for tactical synchronization with main fleet engagement." On her tactical display, she could see the human fleet fighting valiantly, but losing ground against superior Karashim technology. Without the Stellar Hammer, defeat was inevitable. "It's been an honor," she told her crew quietly. "In 3 minutes, we change the course of this war. In 3 minutes, we avenge our colonies." No one mentioned that they wouldn't live to see those 3 minutes pass. Aboard the Karashim Command Dreadnought, Supreme Overseer Val Rex celebrated prematurely as human vessels began to fall under concentrated fire. "You see," he gloated to McLaren, "their pathetic resistance crumbles. Another hour and nothing will remain but debris." "Supreme Overseer," interrupted a sensor operator. "We're detecting unusual energy fluctuations from the junction star." "Irrelevant. Focus on the battle." "Sir," McLaren insisted, "these readings indicate potential hyperlane instability. Our exit vector could be compromised." Vale Rex dismissed the concern with an irritated gesture. Minor stellar variations. Nothing more. At that moment, the stellar hammer activated. Aboard the Revenant, Maris Lynn watched as the device unleashed its terrible purpose. Specialized graviton emitters penetrated the neutron star's magnetosphere, inducing cascading reactions within its core. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the star pulsed with blinding intensity. A massive solar flare erupted from its surface, directed by the hammer's influence toward the junction's hyperlane anchor points. The carefully engineered pathways that allowed faster-than-light travel began to fluctuate wildly as gravitational constants shifted. "Energy surge detected!" screamed Karashim operators across the fleet. "Hyperlane collapse imminent!" Supreme Overseer Vol Rex stared in disbelief as sensor readings confirmed the impossible. "What have they done?" First Strategist Laren understood immediately. "They've weaponized the star itself. All vessels. Emergency withdrawal. Abandon attack formation." Too late. The hyperlane's destabilization created gravitational shear waves that tore through the battlefield. Karashim vessels, their drive systems specifically calibrated to hyperlane frequencies, suddenly found their engines overloading. The human fleet, using simpler propulsion technology, suffered damage but remained largely operational. Admiral Cho had positioned his forces to minimize exposure to the expected phenomenon. "All ships, concentrate fire on disabled targets," he ordered. "Boarding teams, complete your objectives and withdraw immediately." Inside the Karashim cruiser, Elias and his remaining teammates had reached the command center. Bodies of alien crew littered their path, some killed in combat, others apparently electrocuted when the ship's systems overloaded from the hyperlane disruption. "Download in progress," reported their technical specialist, connecting to the alien navigation console. 60 seconds to completion. Elias secured the perimeter. His rifle trained on the entrance. Through the ship's external viewing panels, he could see the battlefield illuminated by the pulsing neutron star. The magnificent, terrible light of the stellar hammer's effect painted everything in surreal patterns of radiation. "For Aegis Prime," he whispered again. "For the fields that would never grow crops again. For the children who would never see another harvest." The ship shuddered violently around them, structural integrity failing as systems crashed. "Download complete!" shouted the specialist. "Setting charges now!" They barely escaped before the cruiser's power core destabilized completely, adding its destruction to the chaos engulfing the Karashim fleet. Aboard the command dreadnought, Supreme Overseer Vol Rex watched in horror as his magnificent armada disintegrated. Ship after ship reported catastrophic drive failures. Those attempting emergency hyperspace jumps disappeared in flashes of exotic radiation, their navigation systems unable to compensate for the destabilized lanes. "Order a full retreat," Laren urged. "We must withdraw beyond the junction's influence." "No!" Vol Rex's mandibles clicked frantically. "I will not be defeated by primitives. All remaining vessels, converge on the human flagship. We will exterminate their leadership if nothing else." As the dreadnought altered course toward Admiral Cho's position, its sensors detected a small vessel on a collision course, the Revenant, its hull, glowing white-hot from radiation exposure, accelerating directly toward them. "Evasive action!" screamed Laren. Too late. The Revenant, its structural integrity already compromised, plowed into the dreadnought's command section. The impact breached multiple compartments simultaneously. Secondary explosions cascaded through weapon systems and power distribution nodes. On the command deck, Vale Rex was thrown violently against a bulkhead. Warning klaxons blared as atmosphere vented through massive hull breaches. Emergency force fields sputtered and failed. His last sight was the bridge view screen, showing the neutron star pulsing with unnatural brightness. A cosmic dragon awakened by human ingenuity and desperation. In that final moment, Supreme Overseer Vale Rex understood his catastrophic miscalculation. These humans were not the defenseless prey he had assumed. They were something far more dangerous. An intelligent species with unlimited capacity for adaptation and retribution when threatened. The dreadnought's power core destabilized completely, transforming the massive vessel into a briefly expanding sphere of plasma and debris. Across the battlefield, Karashim vessels either surrendered or attempted desperate escapes. Many were destroyed by their own malfunctioning systems. Others fell to concentrated human fire. Some managed to limp away, carrying news of unprecedented defeat back to their collective. Admiral Cho surveyed the aftermath from the Defiance command deck. The human fleet had suffered grievous losses, nearly 40% of their vessels destroyed or disabled. But they had achieved what many considered impossible. They had repelled an overwhelming enemy force through innovation, sacrifice, and sheer determination. "Status of the Junction Star?" he asked quietly. "Returning to normal parameters, Admiral. The stellar hammer's effects were temporary, as designed. Hyperlane stability should resume within hours." Cho nodded, gazing at the tactical display showing rescue operations underway. "And the Revenant?" The officer's silence was answer enough. "Record this in the official combat log," Cho ordered. "Captain Maris Lin and the crew of the Revenant gave their lives to ensure humanity's survival. Their sacrifice turned the tide of battle and will never be forgotten." In the weeks that followed, humanity's response to the Karashim attack transformed from desperate defense to organized reconstruction. The data recovered from captured vessels provided invaluable intelligence about Karashim territory, capabilities, and vulnerabilities. President Jovan addressed the Unified Planetary Council, her expression solemn but resolute. "The battle at Perseus Junction marks a turning point in human history. We have demonstrated that while we prefer peace, we are capable of defending ourselves with unexpected effectiveness. Diplomatic channels, established with more moderate factions within the fragmented Karashim collective, yielded surprising developments. The remaining Karashim leadership, their military capability severely diminished, and their supreme overseer dead, sued for peace. We cannot accept simple cessation of hostilities," President Jovan informed the Karashim envoys during formal negotiations. "Your unprovoked attack on civilian targets demands more significant reparations." The terms were non-negotiable. The Karashim would rebuild every destroyed colony at their own expense. They would surrender key technologies to human inspection teams. They would issue a formal apology broadcast across the sector. Most significantly, they would acknowledge a new boundary that pushed Karashim territory back by 3 light-years from any human settlement, creating a buffer zone monitored by newly established defense platforms. On Aegis Prime, Elias Korin stood amid the ashes of what had once been endless fields of grain. Construction drones hummed overhead, rebuilding habitats and agricultural infrastructure. The colony would live again, though many of its original inhabitants never would. "The first seedlings are ready for planting," announced his assistant. Not Tomas, who had died in the initial attack, but a young woman who had lost her parents in the bombardment. Elias nodded, kneeling to examine the soil. Despite orbital bombardment, life persisted beneath the surface. With proper care, these fields would grow food again within months. "We'll plant them in the northern quadrant first," he decided. "The radiation levels are lowest there." Nearby, construction teams completed a memorial, a simple obelisk inscribed with thousands of names. At its base, carved in stone, were words that had become humanity's unofficial motto. "You bombed human colonies? Congratulations. You just awakened the dragon." Elias traced the inscription with weathered fingers. The phrase had appeared everywhere since the victory, on military vessels, government buildings, civilian transports. A reminder that humanity's peaceful nature should never be mistaken for weakness. At Outpost Horizon Station, now substantially rebuilt and heavily defended, Dr. Renata Vale supervised the integration of Karashim biological data into new terraforming protocols. The collaboration, mandated by peace treaties, proceeded with tension but also surprising synergy. Their understanding of cellular adaptation to radiation exceeds our own, she explained to visiting officials. Combined with our atmospheric engineering, we can accelerate habitability timeframes by nearly 60%. One of the Karashim scientists, part of the Reparations Scientific Exchange, added reluctantly. And the human approach to sustainable agriculture preserves ecosystem balance in ways our methods do not. Neither mentioned the circumstances that had brought them together: the deaths, the destruction, the brutal calculus of war. Those memories remained raw, but the work of rebuilding offered something equally powerful: a path forward. Throughout human space, military preparedness became standard practice. Every new colony, research station, and mining outpost incorporated layered defenses and rapid response capabilities. Civilian vessels maintained military-grade shields and emergency weapon systems. Training rotations ensured all citizens possessed basic defensive skills. Yet humanity did not abandon its fundamental nature. Exploration continued. Scientific advancement accelerated, enhanced by recovered Karashim technology. Cultural exchange with amenable alien species flourished. The universe still beckoned with infinite possibilities. Admiral Cho, overseeing the commissioning of a new defense fleet, summarized humanity's transformation during a ceremony honoring the fallen. We remain dedicated to peaceful coexistence, scientific progress, and cultural enrichment. But we will never again be caught unprepared. We extend open hands to those who respect us and show iron fists to those who do not. Each new warship built under his command carried the same inscription on its prow: "You bombed human colonies? Congratulations. You just awakened the dragon." The words served as both warning and promise. Humanity would defend itself with unexpected ferocity when necessary, but preferred the paths of cooperation and mutual advancement. In time, even the Karashim came to understand this duality. Their cultural historians would later identify the Perseus conflict as the moment their species recognized that peaceful appearance did not indicate inability to fight, a lesson purchased at devastating cost. On the anniversary of the attacks, Elias Corin stood in a field of swaying golden grain. The rebuilt colony thrived around him, its population a mixture of survivors and new settlers. Children played where once bombs had fallen, their laughter a defiant counterpoint to memory's darkness. Above the colony, defense platforms maintained vigilant watch. Beyond the atmosphere, patrol vessels, real warships now, not retrofitted civilian craft, conducted regular sweeps. Humanity had learned its lesson well. Elias reached down and took a handful of soil, letting it filter through his fingers. From destruction had come renewal. From loss had come determination. From complacency had come vigilance. The dragon, once awakened, would never again truly sleep.